Thank you, Randir. Ambassador Anurag Bhushan, my colleague, Madam Pooja Kapoor, dear friends from the media, my colleagues, a very good evening to each one of you. It has been another very important day, a very successful day for the visit. We started early morning today in Netherlands. Honorable Prime Minister visited the special dike in Netherlands, where the sweet water is, barricaded with the sea water. It's a special project. He visited that place with the Prime Minister of Netherlands. Then Honorable Prime Minister was seen off at the airport by the Prime Minister of Netherlands. By noon, he arrived in Sweden at the airport. As a special gesture, the Prime Minister of Sweden was at the airport to receive Honorable Prime Minister. Then both of them traveled together to the hotel. Since then, till now, there have been continuous programs, and Honorable Prime Minister of Sweden was present with the Prime Minister in all the programs. Just now we left the dinner program. So it has been a very fruitful day today, very hectic day, but very positive outcomes during the entire day of this short visit. This is Prime Minister's second bilateral visit to Sweden after his landmark visit in 2018, when Sweden hosted the first India-Nordic summit in Stockholm. The visit in 2018 laid a solid foundation of India-Nordic relations and the India-Sweden bilateral ties under the Innovation Partnership. This visit the current visit reflects the growing strategic convergence between India and Sweden and the increasing importance both countries attach to political and strategic dialogue, trade and investment, innovation-led growth, trusted partnerships to build resilient supply chains, defense cooperation, green transition, sustainability, emerging technologies, digitalization and people-to-people ties. The visit witnessed substantive outcomes today. This was Honorable Prime Minister's first visit to Europe after the India-EU FTA was agreed to earlier this year, and it is very important that he also addressed a huge business meeting today, which I will explain in during the course of my briefing today. He also met President of the European Commission, Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, who was in New Delhi in January this year as the chief guest for the National Day, Republic Day of India, during which we have finalized our India-EU FTA. The Prime Minister Modi held the delegation-level talks with the Prime Minister of Sweden, covering the full spectrum of bilateral relations, as well as exchanged views on regional and global developments of mutual interest. As you know, we are in a very challenging times in the global geopolitical scene. Both leaders discussed that and also exchanged their views and concerns on the matter. The leaders have laid the framework of the strategic partnership first time. So we have elevated our relationship to the strategic partnership today based on 4 key elements. Let me list it out. 1, strategic dialogue for stability and security. 2nd, next generation economic partnership. 3rd, emerging technologies and trusted connectivity. 4th, shaping tomorrow together, planet, people, health and resilience. The 2 leaders also adopted a joint action plan for 2026-2030 to operationalize the strategy partnership. Both of these documents have been released on the MEA website. I would urge you to go through that, because it details of this strategy partnership and the action plan implementing that strategy partnership has been detailed in that. I would like to highlight another special gesture by the government, by Sweden today, in a special gesture for Prime Minister Modi's leadership in building India-Sweden relationship. The Royal Order of the Polar Star Commander Grand Cross was conferred upon Prime Minister Modi on behalf of His Majesty the King of Sweden by Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Victoria, conferred it on Honorable Prime Minister. Let me mention that it is among Sweden's oldest and most distinguished honors conferred upon foreign dignitaries and heads of government in recognition of exceptional public service and contribution towards strengthening relations with Sweden. Honorable Prime Minister expressed gratitude for the honor and dedicated it to 1.4 billion people of India and to the enduring friendship between India and Sweden. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister of Sweden also interacted with the select Swedish CEOs and underlined the importance of furthering our trade, technology, investment engagement, and it was attended by CEOs of major Swedish companies, Volvo, AstraZeneca, Saab, Ericsson. These are some of the companies which were present at the round table and it was the Prime Minister, as I said, the Prime Minister of Sweden was also present at the round table meeting. Another important event, I would say that the first major business meeting that Honorable Prime Minister attended with the EU after the India-EU FTA was finalized was today at the European Roundtable for Industry meeting, which also was addressed by Prime Minister of Sweden and also President of the EU Commission, Madam Ursula von der Leyen. They attended that, and Prime Minister was the keynote speaker today at the event. European Roundtable for Industry, a pan-European forum representing prominent business and industry leaders. I'm audible, no? Yes. Okay. From industry leaders from EU, EFTA, and the UK. We have already FTA with we have finalized the FTA with the EU. We have already have the TEPA with EFTA and also comprehensive trade agreement with the UK. This so it's a very important meeting, and the Prime Minister highlighted several important areas for cooperation where the Swedish industry can actually engage closely with India. He highlighted on the telecom and the digital infrastructure sector. Second, he spoke about AI, semiconductors, electronics, and deep tech manufacturing. Third, green transition, energy security, clean energy capacity. Fourth, infrastructure, mobility, and urban transformation. And of course, fifth, healthcare, life sciences. These are some of the areas that Prime Minister specifically mentioned in his keynote address to the European Roundtable Industry, which was attended by a large number of key companies in Europe. I would like to highlight that in his meetings today with the CEOs and other senior leaders from the business, they all highlighted about their interest. They have been observing India for last few years. They have been investing in India for last few years. What they have seen is a complete transformation in India in the last few years. They emphasized that. They spoke about the reforms which continued in India over the last several years, and the reforms have led to transformation of India, and we are seeing key performances there. So they are informed about it. Prime Minister emphasized it, but they all appreciated the transformation in India and spoke about, each one of them spoke about Vikasit Bharat. In Hindi itself, Vikasit Bharat. In Sanskrit itself, they spoke about Vikasit Bharat. So they understand what is our vision. A vision for 2047 as a developed India. And they all would like to grow with us, fully utilize the opportunities that India offers for growth, and they want to be partners in that. And they spoke about even Amrit Kal. So it's a very important meetings where we were able to interact very closely, and Prime Minister invited all of them to continue to invest in India, continue to engage in India. It is a very complementary mentality we can see between EU and India, between Europe and India. The innovation which is happening, technology which is available in Europe, and India's scale. So what we need and what we are looking at is a kind of scaling up at every stage, a quantum leap in our relationship with each of these countries and each of these companies. Let me just mention a few outcomes which some of them I already highlighted. One, please go through the joint statement which is on the website, the action plan 2026-2030 which is on the website. Also want to emphasize which we have decided to establish a India-Sweden Joint Innovation Partnership 2.0, which is a very important development, and endorsement to jointly developing India-Sweden technology and artificial intelligence corridor. India's hosting the AI Impact Summit was greatly appreciated. Almost every European country had actively participated. I remember around 10 heads of states, heads of governments from Europe were present at the AI summit, which was held in New Delhi, where Prime Minister spoke about a human-centric artificial intelligence, which was appreciated by everyone. And today we have announced this India-Sweden Technology and Artificial Intelligence Corridor, SITAC. Which is a very important development. Another important area is doubling the bilateral economic exchange, trade and investment within the next 5 years. We already have a substantive trade and investment with Sweden, but the decision has been taken that we should work with the business to make sure that this is at least doubled in the next 5 years. Another focus area which came up during the discussions was SMEs. We have almost all the major Swedish companies are present in India. There are 300 Swedish companies today present in India. What we are looking for, one, they are expanding their presence in India so that there could be more jobs, more technology transfer, more scale up, more innovation, but also equally important is to have more SMEs, small and medium companies can come and participate in India's growth story, which was also agreed to. And of course, then we discussed about enhancing the defense and security cooperation. You know, Sweden already has a defense cooperation with India. So we have agreed to further strengthen that cooperation. We are formalizing a cyber policy dialogue between India and Sweden. Another important development, we are working on to establishing a joint working group on counter-terrorism, enhancing dialogue on defense-related matters, institutionalizing joint service staff talks, exploring possibilities for cooperation of defense innovation connected to the work in the joint working group of defense. So then cooperation in AI, 5G, 6G, cyber security, quantum technologies and digital infrastructure, another important area is enhanced cooperation in space. In fact, I remember the Prime Minister of Sweden spoke about sky is not the limit in our relationship, in our business relationship, in his. And the President of the European Commission spoke about, again, the mother of all deals, that is the India-EU FTA. So it has been a very useful engagement today, several meetings with the business, high-level interaction with the leadership both of EU and also of Sweden. We agreed to have a new 4-year phase of Lead It. Lead It 2.0 is currently in operation, but now we are looking at Lead It 3.0. It is the industry transition, focusing on climate-related issues. It is basically in our movement towards a zero-emission economy by 2017, we are moving in that direction. So cooperation in climate action is another important area. We are also working and cooperating on ISA, International Solar Alliance, Mission Life, and how we can pursue green energy solutions through those formats. And of course, in our engagement with Sweden, the diaspora is a very important factor. There are around 90,000 Indians working in Sweden. I recall that the Prime Minister of Sweden was very appreciative of the constructive role they are actually playing in the Swedish economy in many sectors, including in the IT sector, AI sector was highlighted. So it has been a very useful, very effective engagement. So I think I would stop here. I would be very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We open the floor for questions. Can we start from here?
Shama Mishra from Doordarshan. You mentioned about CTAC. What would be the practical outcome of this for both the Swedish and the Indian side?
Mm-hmm. Please.
So I'm Arun from Prasar Bharati. You mentioned about the space sector that both the leadership talked about, the European Commission President and also the Swedish leadership. So how are India
spoke about
space
cooperation? Okay.
So how India and Sweden or India and EU are collaborating or going forward as far as space sector is concerned, sir?
So Sakshi Singh from Akashvani. So when we talk about Make in India and Made with Sweden, so these both, how these initiatives will advance when we're talking about the joint action plan 2026 and 30.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the question?
So we have like Make in India and Made in Sweden, which was spoken again and again in today's visit. So how these two initiatives will advance when we talk about the joint action plan between India and Sweden?
Okay.
I think, sir, we can take these questions and then come back for more if we have.
Before I get into answering the questions, I wanted to mention about another special gesture which happened today, that the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister and Prime Minister of Sweden exchanged special gifts celebrating the shared cultural legacy of Rabindranath Tagore. In fact, the gift from Prime Minister of Sweden comprised a box containing 2 replicas of handwritten epigrams by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, accompanied by a small explanatory text and a photograph of Gurudev Tagore taken in 1921 during his visit to the university to Uppsala University in Sweden. The originals recently discovered in the Swedish National Archives were created by Gurudev Tagore during his visit to Sweden in 1921 and 26, and this is the 100th anniversary of that visit of Gurudev Tagore. Prime Minister Modi presented to the Swedish Prime Minister a set of collected works of Rabindranath Tagore, along with a specially handicrafted bag from Shantiniketan with motifs that Gurudev Tagore chose to empower local artisans. The bag symbolizes Tagore's philosophy that art is not meant to be confined to galleries, but to breathe life into everyday objects, bridging the gap between the intellectual and the functional. So I just wanted to highlight that important element of... I'm happy to, as Ambassador is reminding me that if you go through the joint action plan, you will see that one of the important action points which we have agreed to is to commemorate the 2026, that is the 100th anniversary of visit of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore by initiating the Tagore Sweden Lecture Series in Sweden as a platform to further strengthen India-Sweden cultural and intellectual engagement. Now, let me try to answer the question on the joint action plan which was raised now, since I am talking about action plan. See, Make in India is a very successful program so far. It is converting India into a manufacturing hub. Each one of the business leaders and the political leaders whom Honorable Prime Minister spoke to thanked him for the initiative of Made in India, and they all are currently partners in that in the Made in India program. Made in India, Make in India, for India and for the world is the program. This is converting India into a manufacturing hub. Again, the complementarity factor which I highlighted earlier. Innovation, technology, the 3 T's. Innovation, technology in Europe, in EU, in EFTA, in Sweden, and the scale in India. It's a win-win situation. And this is part of our journey to become a developed country in the Amrit Kal journey. So each of these companies which are present, 300, they are ready to further enhance their participation, more investment. There is already a commitment to increase the investment, double the investment in the next 5 years. How do we do it? Governments have now established a framework already, including through the fast clearance mechanism, which we are establishing between the Ministry of Commerce. A lot of efforts are being made in that direction. But then several, the actual implementation of this has to have from the business community. And that is what today in our roundtable, in our one-on-one meetings, like he had a meeting with the shipping company Maersk today. So that was a successful again meeting. Spoke about investment opportunities in India related to the maritime cooperation. One example I can give you how the business is planning to provoke. There would be several business engagement between the two countries. We are planning an India-Sweden stronger together towards 2047 as a business roundtable. India-Sweden business leaders roundtable will be held at a bilateral summit kind of business summit will be held. So this kind of regular engagement would be happening between India and Sweden at the business to business level to make it implement the complementarities in innovation and the scale which is implemented. Now referring to the question on SITAC, correct? SITAC. That is India-Sweden Technology and Artificial Intelligence Corridor. Connecting the AI ecosystems of India and Sweden to form an AI partnership for the future, leveraging successful AI Impact Summit in New Delhi in February. And, the purpose is to connect the business again. Let me emphasize that the Swedish delegation to India for the AI Summit was accompanied by 75 companies already. They were part of this. So mutual collaboration engagement is happening in that, following that, which will be continued. What was the other question on space? Again, a very important sector. When you say that the sky is not the limit, that means we are cooperating and working in the space sector. The Prime Ministers expressed their commitment. Let me read from the joint statement which was issued today, which explains the space cooperation. Their commitment to pursue enhanced cooperation on space and geospatial technologies, taking note of India's role as a leading space nation and the role of Sweden's Esrange Space Center. In fact, the Swedish Prime Minister, in his address to the press conference today, highlighted about India's Chandrayaan mission, and how India was one of those very few countries which was actually sent a vehicle to the moon. The leaders also welcomed collaboration between Indian Space Research Organization and the Swedish Institute of Space Physics on India's Venus orbiter mission. There would be an involvement of Sweden in that mission. Also, I want to highlight, a lot of startups have now working on each of these sectors: space, robotics, drones, AI. So there is a huge opportunity in this engagement which is happening today. Thank you.